Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to lose everything? Not just your job, not just your savings, but your home, your bed, your privacy, your sense of security. Tonight, somewhere in America, hundreds of thousands of people will go to sleep without knowing where they will wake up tomorrow. Some will sleep inside tents pitched beside busy highways. Others will spend the night in cars parked on dark streets. Some will curl up beneath bridges in abandoned lots, or on pieces of cardboard laid across cold concrete. This is not happening in a distant country. This is happening in the United States of America, the richest nation on earth. A country known for opportunity, innovation, and wealth. Yet every year more Americans find themselves living one paycheck away from homelessness, and for many that paycheck never comes. Across the country, entire communities of homeless people have emerged in places that once symbolized prosperity. Sidewalks have become bedrooms. Vehicles have become homes. Public parks have become survival camps. In some cities, tent encampments stretch for blocks, creating scenes that many Americans never imagined they would witness in their own country. And the crisis continues to grow. Rising rents, housing shortages, medical debt, job loss, mental health struggles, addiction, economic uncertainty. These forces are colliding at the same time, pushing thousands of people into instability every single month. But statistics alone cannot explain what homelessness truly means. To understand this crisis, you have to understand daily life on the streets. You have to see what happens when a person no longer has a front door to close at night. When every possession they own fits into a backpack. When survival becomes a full-time job. As dawn breaks across America, many homeless individuals are already awake. Not because they are well rested, but because sleeping outside rarely allows real rest. Traffic roars overhead. Cold air settles into blankets. Streetlights remain bright throughout the night. Every unfamiliar sound becomes a potential threat. For most people, waking up means preparing for work, school, or daily responsibilities. For someone experiencing homelessness, waking up often begins with a different question. What do I need to do today just to survive? The answer usually starts with the basics. Food, water, a restroom, a safe place to sit, a place to charge a phone, a place to escape the weather. Simple needs become major challenges when there is no stable home. Throughout cities like Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Portland, Philadelphia, and many others, thousands of people spend their mornings navigating these challenges. Some head toward soup kitchens. Others wait for outreach teams. Some remain close to their tents, protecting the few belongings they still have. Everything becomes harder without stability. Keeping clean becomes difficult. Finding employment becomes harder. Managing healthcare becomes more complicated. Even receiving mail becomes a challenge. Modern life is built around the assumption that people have an address. When that address disappears, many systems become difficult to access. The homeless crisis affects people from every background. Young adults aging out of foster care. Veterans. Families with children. Workers who lost housing after rent increases. People facing medical emergencies. Individuals struggling with addiction. Seniors living on fixed incomes. There is no single path into homelessness. But once someone falls into it, escaping can be incredibly difficult. Across America, housing costs have risen dramatically in many regions. For millions of families, rent consumes a larger share of income than ever before. The margin for error grows smaller every year. One emergency can change everything. A sudden illness, a lost job, an unexpected expense, a family crisis. What begins as a temporary setback can quickly become a housing emergency. And when housing is lost, recovery is rarely immediate. Deposits are expensive. Apartments are scarce. Waiting lists are long. Affordable units are limited. The road back becomes much steeper than the road down. As the day continues, the visible reality of homelessness becomes clearer. Tents line sidewalks. Vehicles fill parking areas. Encampments appear beneath overpasses and along forgotten corners of cities. For many Americans, these scenes have become increasingly familiar. But familiarity does not make the crisis less serious. In fact, it may make it easier to ignore. The danger is not just that homelessness exists. The danger is that people become accustomed to seeing it. That tents become part of the landscape. That suffering becomes background scenery. That a humanitarian crisis begins to feel normal. Because homelessness is not simply about lacking a roof. It is about instability. It is about uncertainty. It is about surviving one day at a time while the rest of society moves forward. And tonight, as millions of Americans return home, lock their doors, and prepare for sleep, hundreds of thousands of others will face a very different reality. A reality defined by exposure, by uncertainty, by survival, and by a simple question that grows harder to answer every day. How did America get here? That is the story we are about to explore. If homelessness is the visible symptom, then instability is the disease. And nowhere is that instability more obvious than in the daily routines of people living on America's streets. For most Americans, daily life is built around structure. A home provides a foundation for everything else. It is where people sleep, store belongings, receive mail, prepare meals, recover from illness, and plan for the future. Without that foundation, even the simplest tasks become difficult. Imagine trying to find a job without a reliable place to shower. Imagine attending an interview after spending the night in a vehicle. Imagine trying to manage medication while living inside a tent. Imagine raising children while moving from shelter to shelter. For hundreds of thousands of Americans, these are not hypothetical situations. They are everyday realities. As the sun rises over cities across the country, people experiencing homelessness begin another day centered around immediate survival. The first challenge is often finding basic necessities: food, water, restrooms, safe places to rest. Many spend hours each day simply trying to access resources that housed individuals take for granted. A shower may require crossing the city. Laundry may require money they don't have. A restroom may only be available for a short period of time. A phone charger can become one of the most valuable possessions a person owns. Modern life depends on communication. Without a working phone, opportunities disappear quickly. Employers cannot call. Case workers cannot reach clients. Housing providers cannot follow up. Medical appointments are missed. In many ways, a dead phone can create a chain reaction of setbacks. The same is true for identification documents, birth certificates, social security cards, driver's licenses. These items are essential for employment, housing applications, and public assistance programs. But keeping documents safe while living on the streets is incredibly difficult. If a backpack is stolen or damaged, years of paperwork can disappear overnight. Replacing those documents often requires money, transportation, and time. Resources that may already be limited. The longer homelessness continues, the more difficult recovery becomes. Physical health begins to decline. Poor sleep affects concentration. Exposure to weather weakens the body. Minor medical conditions become serious problems. Cuts become infections. Dental issues become chronic pain. Untreated illnesses grow worse over time. Without stable housing, maintaining health becomes an uphill battle. Mental health faces similar challenges. Living without security creates constant stress. People remain alert throughout the day and night. Every sound matters. Every stranger becomes a potential threat. Every interaction carries uncertainty. Over time, this constant vigilance becomes exhausting. Many individuals report feeling mentally drained, even when physically inactive. The human brain is not designed to remain in survival mode indefinitely. Yet that is exactly what happens on the streets. Hours turn into days. Days become months. Months become years. And survival becomes routine. One of the most misunderstood aspects of homelessness is employment. Many people assume that homelessness automatically means unemployment. The reality is often far more complicated. Across America, there are individuals who work while homeless. Some hold full-time jobs. Others work part-time or temporary positions. Some deliver food. Some clean buildings. Some work construction jobs. Some work retail shifts. Yet despite employment, housing remains out of reach. In cities where rent prices have skyrocketed, wages often fail to keep pace. A person may earn enough to survive but not enough to secure stable housing. After paying for food, transportation, and basic expenses, little remains for security deposits, application fees, and monthly rent. This creates a dangerous gap. People work, but cannot move forward. The result is a growing population of working homeless Americans. Families face particularly difficult circumstances. Parents experiencing homelessness often go to extraordinary lengths to protect their children from the reality of their situation. Some families stay in motels for as long as possible. Others move between relatives. Some sleep inside vehicles. Many children attend school every day while living in unstable housing situations. Teachers may never know. Classmates may never know. The child arrives carrying a backpack and completes assignments like everyone else. But behind that normal appearance lies a constant struggle for stability. The effects can be profound. Frequent moves disrupt education. Stress affects concentration. Sleep deprivation impacts learning. And yet many families continue pushing forward despite overwhelming obstacles. Older adults represent another rapidly growing segment of America's homeless population. For decades, retirement was viewed as a period of stability. Today, rising housing costs have changed that reality for many seniors. Fixed incomes often fail to keep pace with rent increases. Medical expenses consume limited resources. Savings disappear faster than expected. When older adults lose housing, recovery becomes especially difficult. Physical limitations make life on the streets more dangerous. Health conditions become harder to manage. And employment opportunities become increasingly limited. At the same time, America's affordable housing shortage continues to grow. In many cities, demand dramatically exceeds supply. Vacant apartments exist, but they are often financially inaccessible to low-income renters. Waiting lists stretch for months or even years. Housing vouchers remain limited. Construction struggles to keep pace with population growth. As housing becomes more expensive, more people live closer to financial instability. The margin for error shrinks. A single setback can become catastrophic. A medical emergency, a job loss, a divorce, an unexpected repair bill. Events that once caused inconvenience now have the potential to trigger homelessness. This growing vulnerability extends beyond those already living on the streets. Millions of Americans exist one financial crisis away from losing housing. That reality helps explain why homelessness continues to rise. The crisis is not simply about individuals already experiencing homelessness. It is also about those at risk of becoming homeless tomorrow. As evening approaches, another challenge emerges. Finding a place to sleep. This decision shapes everything. Safety, weather protection, access to resources, potential interactions with law enforcement. For people living in tents, location matters. For people living in vehicles, parking restrictions matter. For people relying on shelters, bed availability matters. Nothing is guaranteed, and uncertainty follows them into the night. The public often sees homelessness through brief encounters. A person asking for spare change, a tent beside a freeway, an encampment under a bridge. But those images reveal only a small part of the story. Behind every visible sign of homelessness exists a daily struggle that most people never witness. The constant movement, the lack of privacy, the endless search for basic necessities, the emotional weight of uncertainty, the challenge of maintaining hope while facing obstacles at every turn. And yet despite these conditions, people continue to adapt. They build routines. They form communities. They help one another. They survive. Because survival is what homelessness demands. But survival is not the same as living. And as night falls across America once again, hundreds of thousands of people continue searching for something many others take for granted. Not luxury. Not comfort. Not wealth. Just stability. A place to sleep. A door that locks. A roof overhead. And the chance to build a future that extends beyond tomorrow. Because until stability exists, the homeless crisis will remain one of America's most visible and painful challenges. And for those living it every day, the struggle is far more than a statistic. It is life itself. As darkness settles across America, the homeless crisis becomes easier to see, but harder to understand. Streetlights illuminate tents beneath overpasses. Vehicles line quiet streets where people prepare to sleep inside cramped spaces. Shelter beds fill quickly. Public parks empty. Business districts grow silent. And for hundreds of thousands of Americans, another night of uncertainty begins. For many viewers, homelessness can feel distant. A problem observed through news reports, social media videos, or brief encounters on city streets. But for those living it, homelessness is not a headline. It is an environment. A condition that follows them every hour of every day. And perhaps the most difficult part of homelessness is not the lack of housing itself. It is the loss of stability that comes with it. A home provides more than shelter. It creates routine, predictability, privacy, security. Without those things, life becomes increasingly complicated. Imagine going weeks without uninterrupted sleep. Imagine never knowing where you will spend the next night. Imagine carrying everything you own everywhere you go. Imagine having no private place to think, recover, or simply exist. For many people experiencing homelessness, this uncertainty becomes normal. Not because it is easy, but because human beings adapt. And adaptation can sometimes hide the severity of suffering. As the homeless crisis grows across America, another reality becomes increasingly visible. Entire communities are developing around instability. Encampments form because people need proximity to resources. People gather near meal programs, near public transportation, near service providers, near places where survival feels slightly more manageable. These communities are often misunderstood. From a distance they may appear chaotic, but within them routines exist. People share information, protect one another, exchange resources, warn others about danger. Human connection remains possible even under extremely difficult conditions, because community is one of the few resources that costs nothing. Yet community alone cannot solve homelessness. The larger forces driving the crisis continue growing. Housing costs remain high. Affordable housing remains limited. Healthcare remains expensive for many Americans. Economic instability continues affecting households across the country. Millions live paycheck to paycheck. Many renters spend large portions of their income simply keeping a roof overhead. As a result, the gap between stability and homelessness has become smaller than many people realize. For some, homelessness arrives gradually. For others, it happens almost overnight. A job disappears. Medical bills accumulate. Rent increases. Relationships break down. Savings run out. And suddenly, a person who once considered homelessness impossible finds themselves confronting it directly. This reality challenges one of the most persistent myths surrounding homelessness. The belief that homelessness only affects a specific type of person. The truth is far more complicated. Homelessness affects veterans, families, young adults, senior citizens, workers, students, people with disabilities, people recovering from illness, people escaping violence. The paths into homelessness are different, but the experience often leads to the same destination: instability. And instability affects every aspect of life. Without stable housing, healthcare becomes harder to maintain. Without stable housing, employment becomes harder to sustain. Without stable housing, education becomes harder to pursue. Without stable housing, recovery from addiction becomes more difficult. Without stable housing, mental health challenges often intensify. The absence of a home creates barriers everywhere. Even simple tasks become major obstacles. Receiving mail, charging a phone, storing documents, preparing meals, taking medication. Things that many people complete automatically become daily challenges. And over time, those challenges accumulate. The body feels it. The mind feels it. Hope begins to feel heavier. One of the most concerning trends in America today is the increasing visibility of homelessness in places where it was once uncommon. Smaller cities, suburban communities, rural areas. The crisis is no longer concentrated in a handful of major metropolitan regions. It is spreading. And with that spread comes a growing realization. This is not simply a city problem. It is a national problem. Different communities experience homelessness differently. In some places, tents dominate the landscape. In others, vehicles become primary shelters. In rural regions, homelessness is often hidden among forests, abandoned properties, and isolated areas. The appearance changes. The underlying instability does not. Meanwhile, local governments continue searching for solutions. Some focus on expanding shelters. Others invest in affordable housing. Some increase outreach efforts. Others emphasize enforcement and encampment removals. Every approach comes with challenges. Every strategy faces limitations. And every community debates how best to respond. Public frustration grows as visible homelessness increases. Residents worry about safety. Businesses worry about customers. Cities struggle with sanitation and public space management. At the same time, people experiencing homelessness continue facing daily survival challenges. This creates a difficult tension. One group wants cleaner, safer neighborhoods. Another group wants stable housing and support. Often both goals are reasonable. The challenge is finding solutions capable of addressing both realities simultaneously. As the debate continues, one fact remains clear. The longer homelessness lasts, the harder it becomes to escape. Months on the street can become years. Temporary situations become permanent. Short-term survival strategies evolve into long-term lifestyles. The deeper someone becomes trapped in homelessness, the more barriers appear. Physical health declines. Employment histories develop gaps. Relationships weaken. Mental health suffers. Recovery becomes increasingly difficult. This is why prevention matters. Stopping homelessness before it begins is often easier than ending it afterward. But prevention requires recognizing warning signs early. Housing instability, financial emergencies, rising debt, job loss, health crises. All of these factors can push people toward homelessness if support systems fail. As midnight approaches across America, countless stories unfold simultaneously. A family sleeps inside a motel room paid for one more night. A worker sleeps inside a vehicle before an early shift. A senior citizen settles into a shelter bed. Someone inside a tent listens to rain striking the fabric overhead. Someone else walks through the night because sleep feels unsafe. These experiences are different. Yet they share one common theme: uncertainty. The uncertainty of not knowing what tomorrow will bring. The uncertainty of not having a place to call home. And the uncertainty of whether the systems designed to help will arrive in time. For many Americans, home is a place. For people experiencing homelessness, home often becomes a goal, a future possibility, a hope that remains just out of reach. And that may be the most important thing to understand about America's homeless crisis. It is not simply about tents, or shelters, or statistics. It is about human beings searching for stability in an increasingly unstable environment. It is about people trying to rebuild lives while carrying burdens most others never have to consider. It is about survival, but also about dignity. Because every person sleeping outside tonight is more than a number, more than a headline, more than a policy debate. They are individuals living through one of the most difficult experiences modern society can produce. And until stability becomes more accessible, the cycle will continue. Morning will come. People will wake. The search for food, safety, and shelter will begin again. And America's homeless crisis will remain one of the defining challenges of our time. Not hidden, not distant, but unfolding every day in plain sight.